Mic check 1 2 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and I've been grappling with this thought process of reproduction versus emulation. And what I'm referring to is the fact that prices for retro games are definitely through the roof. Retro game collecting is not the easiest thing to do these days, mainly because a lot of games are really expensive. And that is typically the number one complaint that you hear whenever the topic comes up. It doesn't mean that there aren't cheap games out there, because there are plenty of cheap games out there. But when you're a collector who maybe you grew up with a certain game, or maybe there's games that you've wanted to try, a lot of times it just seems like the games that you really want are 35, 40, 50, 60, 200, $5,000. And this is the reason why emulation is so huge. And this is a big part of the reason why the emulation community is so strong. And shout out to the emulators, man. I've emulated in the past. I haven't emulated for a long time. But what I have done is I've gotten into reproduction carts. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of opinions on this. For a lot of collectors, they might view reproduction carts as like blasphemous. How dare you buy a fake Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis game? But for me, I felt like it was more fun for me to get a reproduction cart of Hagane than to emulate it. Because yeah, the game is fake, but still being able to get it in what looks like very much a regular Super Nintendo cartridge. I mean, this is a reproduction Super Nintendo cart, but they did a really good job on it. And if you didn't look too hard, you probably wouldn't even be able to tell that this was a fake Super Nintendo game. Obviously, what gives it away is the label. Once you start looking closely at the label, you can tell that it's a fake cartridge, especially for a game like Hagane. There are very, very few copies of Hagane that have a label this clean anymore. And then obviously, once you crack this game open and you start to look at the motherboard, you'll easily be able to tell that this is a fake game. Now, the reason why I purchased a reproduction cart of this game is because despite the height and the wave of retro gaming being somewhat over, Hagane has always been a very expensive game. Now, there's a lot of people who could care less about this game. In fact, there's probably a lot of gamers in the community who don't even know about Hagane. They don't even know what this game is about. But if you are a fan of the side-scrolling hack and slash ninja style game, like if you're a fan of the Ninja Gaiden games, the Shinobi games, if you like games like that, then Hagane is going to be a grail for you. And this is truly a grail for me. I mean, there was a point where I was willing to trade away a third of my collection to get a copy of this game, to get a real copy of this game. And one day I had to just face reality and come to terms with the fact that, like, as great as this game is, it's not worth $10,000. Like, I couldn't bring myself to pay, loose cart, this game is going to be roughly $1,000, $1,000 to $1,300. Complete in box, this game is going to be somewhere between $5,000 to $10,000. And I've always wanted a complete in box copy of this game, but it does not make sense. I'd have to have a lot of FU money. I'd have to have a lot of disposable income to be willing to cough up the amount of money that it would take to get this game authentic. Now, I did run into a website that had these reproduction carts for 25 bucks. And it gives you the same experience of a real Hagane cartridge. I mean, they did an amazing job with this label. I got to give them props. This is a very well done reproduction cart. And if I wanted to be a scoundrel, I could probably pass this off to someone as a real cart, someone who's not aware or doesn't know how to detect whether or not games are real. But for me, I did this for the nostalgia factor. I did this for the feel of the game. And I think whenever I think about the nostalgic feeling, the motion of pulling out a cartridge, popping it into the Super Nintendo, turning it on and holding a Nintendo controller, to me this is the best way to still get that fix without breaking the bank. Now, some people, they don't care how they play retro games. They don't care if they're playing the retro game on their PC. They don't care if they're playing their retro games on some type of retro handheld. As long as they're able to experience the software, they're okay with it. Me, I am a sucker for nostalgic feelings. And so, while yes, I could probably download, this game for free somewhere or rip it from some site, I felt like the $25 was worth having somewhat of the old school nostalgic experience. And it's basically the same thing if you think about it. I mean, neither ways of playing the game are the original. I don't have an original cartridge, and obviously emulation isn't the original way to play the physical game. But both satisfy a need. They both satisfy the need to experience the game. I just think it satisfies the needs in different ways. Emulation, I think, is more for the person who has really no emotional attachment to it, and they're just interested in the utility. They just want to play the game. They want to see if they can beat it. They want to say that they tried it and move on. Something like a reproduction cart kind of gives you the same feeling, and it satisfies more than just the need for utility. It also satisfies somewhat of an emotional need as well. I kind of compare it to real Jordans and fake Jordans, right? If you're a person who grew up wearing Nikes, if you're a person who grew up wearing Jordans, for the longest, you could not wear fake Jordans. And back in the day, fake Jordans were so easy to spot that you're almost better off going to Payless and getting a pair of Payless sneakers than wearing fake Jordans, because if you got caught wearing fake Jordans, it was over for you. You were tagged with the label of a person who wears fake Jordans for the rest of the school year, perhaps for the rest of your school career, if you stayed in the same school. But today, fake Jordans they look so real. They're so close to the real thing that you can't even tell. In fact, a lot of the fake Jordans are being manufactured in the same factories that the real ones are. It's just the difference is that one is authorized by Nike and the other one isn't. And so they're so close that you have a generation of kids doing something that my generation never could do. You have a generation of kids who actually embrace fake Jordans, and all they do is wear fake Jordans because the naked eye can't tell the difference. And yes, could they go and buy a completely different pair of sneakers? Do they have to wear Jordans? Could they just buy a pair of $30 sneakers that cover their feet and give them support? Yeah, they could. But there's this like emotional attachment to it, right? There's a mental thing to it. And I think the same could be said for something like Hagane or any kind of video game that you get in a reproduction format rather. And I'm interested to know what you guys think. What are your thoughts on emulation versus reproduction? And are fakes okay today? Because in my opinion, shoot, I think they are. If you don't want to pay the price for certain games, get it fake. No one's judging you but you, and you're the one who has to live with your collection. Don't let anyone fool you or pressure you into thinking that you have to have a real copy of any game. It's your collection, it's your choice, do what you want to do, but I'm interested to know your thoughts. It's the Y2K Collector. I'll catch you in the next video.